Our next speakers are actually award-winning people who have presented in multiple international conferences. Please give me a pleasure. Put your hands together for welcoming Prashant and Habin from Moengage.
You put us in a lot of pressure with that intro. Yeah, next one. Yeah. So, hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here today. Can you guys hear me at the end? Okay. So, my name is Prashant Hegde. I head the testing unit at Moengage. With me is Habin. He heads the automation efforts at Moengage. So, today we are here to share with you all our story of test automation. We will share with you our journey, the challenges that we faced, the tools that we used, and the learnings that we had. So, my hope is that our story probably gives you some insights into how you can approach your test automation the right way. So I try to keep the presentation straightforward and to the point so that you can have some takeaways and you can go back to your workplace and implement something out of this talk. So speaking a little bit about Moengage, Moengage is a leading marketing automation platform. It's a full stack cloud-based company. We basically enable marketers to engage their customers and retain them for longer. We provide campaign orchestration and automation capabilities to create seamless user experiences. That's what we do. And what you can see on the screen is our wonderful testing team. So initially when we started, our testing team was our testers were supposed to be both generalists as well as specialists in a few areas. They did everything that was required to roll out a quality release, right? Everything that is required, right from automation testing to performance testing. So we did a lot of heavy lifting. We did not have specialized roles as such for automation or security or performance and so on. So speaking about our problem statement, I think it's something similar to most of the businesses that are here, right? Moengage basically wanted quality at speed. The vision of Moengage is to build the world's most trusted customer engagement platform. So there was no way that Moengage can compromise on quality. At the same time, we wanted to release faster so that we can have a competitive advantage, so that we can release some market first features. So to meet these demands, we as testers knew that automation is the key to achieve quality at speed. However, we were still in a startup mode, probably too early to start automation. And also, speaking about the problems that our testers faced, right? So we were very early startup. So most of the testers were either freshers or entry level, experienced folks. They had limited experience in programming or even with automation tools. Okay, and we did a lot of releases. So we did a lot of repetitive work every cycle. There were some frustrating ones like cross-browser testing and things like that. We tried to automate at the UI layer. However, our front end was undergoing a transformation from Angular to React, which made it really difficult for us to get something out of automation. And we had no prior test coverage as such, and even the unit tests were very limited. So if I keep speaking, there were a number of challenges that we had that we as an early stage, company and testing team had to deal with a lot. I know multiple teams spoke about the test automation pyramid. So when we started our initiative, we wanted to get our strategy right. So we used Micron's test automation pyramid as a guiding principle. So basically this model tells you how to create a portfolio of automated tests. At what proportion should be your different automated tests. So just to explain you how it works, the width of the pyramid basically tells you how many tests you need to have at each level. So basically what it preaches is it preaches you to push tests down to the lowest level possible for higher ROI. That's what it preaches. It means you need to have maximum number of unit tests followed by API tests, and you want to have as less UI tests as possible. Usually when we talk of test automation, we think of UI automation, right? We think of Selenium and automating at the UI level. But UI tests have its own drawbacks. So as you can see, as you move up the ladder, the time, the cost involved in creation, maintenance, and the execution time also increase. And UI tests are also flaky and brittle, so which makes it even more difficult. So what we found out was the key or the foundation of a good automation strategy are unit tests. So we spoke to our developers and development managers. So we did some initiatives to strengthen our unit test foundations. So first thing that we made was we said that automated unit tests should be part of definition of done. If you call a story or a feature as complete, right, it should have unit tests. And we also defined, we enforce minimal code coverage, both for new features that are rolled out and for existing repositories as well. And usually our developers never accounted for unit tests when they estimated for their development tasks. We asked them to do that. We took several other initiatives to strengthen our unit test layer. Yeah. So while our developers were busy in ramping up their unit test coverage, so we testers started to focus on the so-called forgotten layer of test automation. That is the API test. So the beauty of automating tests at the API layer is that you can test the core functionality by completely skipping the UI. It gives you almost the same benefits as the unit test because they are quicker and they are much more stable. So the tool of our choice was Postman because as I told you, our team was still early and the learning curve of Postman was very low. And the automation capabilities it provided were wonderful. So we went with Postman with little training and with some level of basic JavaScript. Our team was able to write powerful automated tests. So when I speak about automated tests, it's not that you're just checking for 200 OK. We are testing end to end, right? We are chaining up the APIs and we are testing the critical business flows. That's what we are trying to do here. And once we had good number of automated tests at the API layer, we started running them on a schedule. We made them part of our CI/CD pipelines. And this enabled us to shift left. We started testing early. And this also enabled us to achieve some success in sprint test automation. We were able to automate some tests within our sprints itself. Furthermore, Postman also has a CLI client, which is the Newman. We started using Postman Newman, and we use something called as monitors. So what monitors let you do is you can run automated tests frequently, right? We chose some business critical cases. We made them run at frequent intervals. So what this did is this allowed us to shift right? These tests were running on production. We were able to identify several risks before the customer did, because with monitors you can also do some alerting and you can also send the data to APM tools. Furthermore, so I spoke about some drawbacks of automating at the UI layer, but like most of you already discussed, nothing gives you more confidence than automating at the UI layer because the coverage is the most, right? It's if it runs in UI, you are absolutely sure that everything is in place. So when we scaled up, when we had enough expertise with UI automation, we started implementing UI automated tests with Playwright. And when we did that, we were very selective about what cases have to be automated at the UI layer. And to negate some of the drawbacks of the execution time at the UI layer, we used a hybrid approach. So what I mean by hybrid approach is you probably do the setup and tear down using the APIs, and the core part of the test still runs in the UI mode. With parallelization and with hybrid mode, you kind of negate many of the drawbacks at the UI layer. Furthermore, we also complemented with visual testing, and we brought in Lambda test, which acts as our device farm and also our test execution cloud. So once we did all this, next slide, our automation stack looked something like this. And the small, the cloud that you see on the top represents that regardless of how strong your automated tests are, you will still need crafty exploratory testing. So here are some numbers. Just have a glance. I will not go in deep. So for us, coverage does not say a lot of things, right? So some of the KPIs that we track are time saved, the risks that we found, and more importantly, the satisfaction of your customers. Excuse me. Yeah. So some of the lessons that I want you to take away today are, number one, when you start an automation initiative, first ask yourself, what is the goal of test automation? Right? What are you trying to achieve with test automation? Start with the end in mind. So we created an automation team, and when we did that, we used this template that you see on the screen. So you can download it and try using it yourself. This is free to use for everyone. So as we all know, software development is a social activity, right? Similarly, test automation is also a social activity. Make automation everyone's responsibility. So how do you do that? It depends on your teams. So one of the things that we did is we created a data-driven framework. So this data-driven framework actually enabled everyone to contribute to test automation. That is, we had a CSV and people could go in and put the test data there. So this enabled everyone to contribute to test automation. Yeah. So the last takeaway is, regardless of how powerful your automation stack is, your test data is really important. The quality of your test data really matters, right? So your production usually contains some data that is varied and the characters that can break your code. So spend some time in test data management. That's what we did, and we tried to mimic our customers and how they interact with our application and how they use the data. We tried to mimic that in our automated tests. So this helped us to uncover some risks and edge cases. Yeah, with that, we'll open up for questions. Yeah.
So what's the feature, again, turnaround time for developers when they push their code to Git, and between the time they push their code to Git and they know that there's something wrong?
Okay. So in our CI, we usually have our API tests that are added, and very selective UI tests. So I think Habin can say you the exact time of how much it would take.
Even the average is fine.
Okay. So for API tests, we almost executes all the API tests to make sure that the dependent services are not down or the environment is proper and it can be pushed to the prod. That is one thing. So API is like we try to cover most of the things. For UI, we have a list of features divided with respect to the features. So the developer or the tester or who is the owner for that particular feature, they particularly know like what feature they are going to what is the impact area. So they can select like which all test case UI test case has to be run. So it's all like a parameterized, like they can give what all has to execute it and it will run the tests.
I had a question regarding your journey. So you told you were a startup.
Yes.
You didn't have the experience in test.
Yes,
That's
yes.
quite that is the case for dev also. So
Yes.
how did they take your approach of adding many test cases? And so
Uh,
simple thing I have seen is when someone starts, they try to deliver as much as possible.
Yes.
So the code is not unit testable at that point of time. So how was that approach?
So if I get your question right, so you are saying even the development would be new, right? So we were in a mode of releasing quickly, right? So what I told you, the story is over a period of time, right? So this is something that happened in parallel. They started investing in unit tests. Our developers invested in unit tests, and we invested in the next layer, that is the API tests. So there was this effort happening parallelly. So
Did that impact your business?
No, it there was some little bit of delays, but the benefits that you reap out of investment is some. I think at the end it's how you convince your management, right? Because you are trying to help them release faster. So it's all about how you manage your stakeholders, how you convince them to do this. Again, I did not speak about the training part. We had to invest some amount of training for the teams to upskill. Parallelly, we were also scaling. We hired a lot of new folks. We created few folks who had expertise in automation. Okay, so we created kind of a central hub. These guys not only help teams to upskill, but they also started working as a center of excellence. They started bringing in new processes, tools, educating the teams. So we were decentralized, and at the same time there was a centralized team which could train teams, mentor them, and help them with automation. So that was the approach that we took.
And the APS suite also does a performance test of the APS?
Yes, it does. But it's not like we don't have them in CI mode right now. It's more on demand basis that we do, or during the releases whenever we need, we do it. But we have not reached automating of the performance tests yet.
Testers write the API test suits.
Yes. So if you go back, initially we started it, but the whole idea is eventually everyone should contribute to test automation, right? So that's why what we did was, Habin, go to the previous slide. Okay. The next one, the lesson number 2. So basically what we did was, we created a framework wherein anybody can contribute, right? People just had to go in a CSV file, and they just had to add some test data. So usually we limited, initially the limit of developers was just to automate unit tests, but we started onboarding them to contribute at both API and UI layer. So this was a gradual process, did not happen at once. But once we had a solid base of unit tests, we started onboarding our developers to contribute to both API as well as the UI layer. That's how it's
Any
working.
announcements in the test cases that it's the developer's responsibility to do that, because the CI pipeline, it will not be much, right? If developer will be dependent on tester to fix the test suite, right?
So we give the ownership to the team, right? Because when we see it's the responsibility of the team, it to be very honest, it depends from pod to pod, the way they have their agreement on who owns it, but the ownership lies with the entire team. Yeah.
Did the developers seriously follow TDD, or was it like they write some scaffolding
Uh,
and then they write some?
So see, again, it depends. Not many developers were for TDD, right? So but when we enforce this basic code coverage limits, right? That's when we also had a dashboard, to be honest, right? We started appreciating people who have good code coverage. We started announcing them publicly and giving them some rewards. So some kind of motivation is required for developers to write unit tests, and we.
Did it work sustainably? Like
Yes, it did, because over a period of time, we had decent coverage. Around 60 to 80% is what we are, trying to reach. But again, there are many things that we did to make it happen, because just enforcing a number probably will not work out. It should, be an intrinsic motivation that motivates developers to, do something.
And also one more point, so like developers can write for the just the point of coverage, right? Code coverage can be achievable, like write an API integration test, so it will give the full coverage of the code.
So the thing is, every layer of test automation brings its own advantages, right? So unit test is written for a reason, right? We cannot expect it to do a lot of coverage, but the feedback is quicker, right? That's the advantage of unit tests. At the same time, integration test gives you the results when things are integrated and they are faster. UI gives you. So in my opinion, every level of automation has its own significance. And this test automation pyramid, there are many versions of it. Postman also spoke about the trophy version. So it depends on which model works really for you. But it's all about getting the portfolio of automated tests right. So
There's no one size fits all.
exactly.
Any other questions?
How these tools can work together? Are they integrated well? So you need to consider all these things And also, in my opinion, we should not be adopting the tools. Tools should be adopting to us. That's my philosophy. Okay. So for all the tool makers out there, one last slide, guys. Okay. So this is one secret ingredient for a successful automation strategy, in my opinion, which most of us usually don't speak. It's the testability and automatability, right? So identify things that make automation really harder or slower for you, right? Identify such pieces and build tools, build APIs. If required, talk to developers and enable testability and automatability. Bring that up in your meetings, in your stand-ups, right? Only when you prioritize automatability, that's when I think you can accelerate as a team towards automation. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Thank you.